We are midway through the section of the course I call the inequalities. In this course, we will be looking at inequalities of social class, race and ethnicity, sex and gender, and aging. There are other inequalities as well that we won't be looking at. For example, inequalities due to ability or disability. They aren't usually addressed in an introductory course. You need to take a course that is concentrating solely on inequalities to get those. It's important that you know the difference between sex and gender. People use them interchangeably, but they are not the same thing. Sex is the biological stuff you were issued at birth, indoor plumbing for females, outdoor plumbing for males. It's commonly thought that there are only two choices here, but current research shows that sometimes things go awry in the DNA and an individual can end up with different combination of chromosomes that don't fit into either of those categories. We have to start thinking about things differently now. Most of us learned in high school biology class that sex chromosomes determine a baby's sex. XX means girl, XY means boy, but sometimes XX and XY don't tell the whole story. Today, we know that the various elements that make up male and female don't always line up neatly, with all the X's complete with the indoor plumbing and secondary characteristics such as breasts and wide hips, and all the XY's complete with indoor plumbing and secondary characteristics like broad shoulders and heavy facial and body hair. Sometimes it's possible to have the XX chromosome and be mostly male in terms of anatomy, physiology, and psychology, just as it's likely to have the XY chromosome and be mostly female. Gender, on the other hand, is a total social construct. It is the identity that the child is socialized into and the role they will play. Once a young child learns to talk, most of them will declare a gender identity that usually aligns with the plumbing they were assigned. However, sometimes that identity is not so clear-cut. Around 2 years old, children become conscious of the physical differences between boys and girls. By 4 years old, most have a stable sense of their own gender identity. During this time, that's when children start to learn the gender role behaviors. That is, the stereotypical things that boys do or that girls do. This influences the toys they choose to play with, the clothes they choose to wear, activities, and friends. While gender identity typically becomes clear during childhood, sexual orientation, another thing altogether, becomes evident later. Sexual orientation refers to the person someone falls in love with or is attracted to. Recent research indicates that, like gender identity, sexual orientation cannot be changed. It's not a choice. Many gender nonconforming children grow up to identify as gay, lesbian, or bisexual. They are at risk for bullying and mental health problems, not because there's something inherently wrong with them, but because they are marginalized and otherwise badly treated. Gender and sexuality concerns influence a large number of teen suicide attempts. There used to be less than a handful of adjectives to describe sexual orientation. I recently counted more than 20. I've included a list with definitions of some of the most commonly accepted ones now. I have also included a registration form from a local clinic that asks a prospective patient to choose their sex and gender. Around the world and across time, there have always been cultures that identify a third gender. For example, the Hijra of India, the Burdarch of North America, and more. This is sometimes hard for people to understand. I hope this helps clears it up. As the society we live in continues to become more and more complex, these once discrete categories may continue to develop and overlap with more genders identified. So please make sure you can tell the difference. And there's nothing natural or wrong about any of them.